A priest was greeting his people after Sunday Mass. He was standing in the vestibule of his church while today's gospel story was kind of running around in his mind. You see, he longed to increase his Mass attendance. He thought about how his church was never really full for any Mass. Sounds a little familiar, maybe? Now, the priest spotted a young couple he had never seen before. So he decided to go over to them and introduce himself. And he asked them the question, what parish were they from? And the husband replied, well, Father, actually, I'm transferring from the municipal golf course. Jesus reminds us that we all need to transfer our focus from what entices us to what it takes to build up the kingdom of heaven. If we bury our lives in idle pursuits, we may very well end up like the third servant in today's gospel parable. Now, today's gospel parable is a favorite with American capitalists and fundamentalist counselors, focusing on the unintended and textually unsupported meaning of the word talent. Jesus' listeners were neither capitalists nor committed to self-improvement. They were peasants. Would these interpretations bring good news to a peasant? I doubt it. Note, today's parable didn't begin like most of the parables. Remember, most parables begin with things like, the kingdom of heaven is like. We didn't hear that, did we? As you think about the text, ask yourself, is this the way the master acted, the way you want God to act with regard to you? Now, in this homily, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Usually the parable is viewed from the viewpoint of the three servants. We identify with those two servants, don't we? The ones that increased their master's wealth. But let's consider the parable from the viewpoint of the master. In Jesus' time, remember, a talent started out as a measurement of weight. It came to be applied to an amount of money, 5,000 denarii. Now, you know by now, after hearing all these parables, that a denarius was 1 day's wages in Jesus' time. It was a silver Roman coin. So it took 5,000 denarii to make 1 talent. 5 talents would be 25,000 days' wages. 2 10,000. 1 5. These were very, very large sums of money to entrust to a servant. But he wanted them to act in his stead, to represent him in the administration of his goods. He gave no detailed instructions, did he? But left everything in their hands. Now, if he wanted the money banked, he could very well have done that before he ever left on his journey. Instead, by giving them such responsibility, he planned to, as the gospel says, reap what he did not sow. Upon his return, after a long time, he discovered not only how industrious his servants were, but how they regarded him. The third servant lived in fear, didn't he? And regarded his master as being a hard man, lending that third servant to have as little as possible to do with the master's money. The first 2 servants, although we don't hear what they said, didn't have to verbalize their opinions. They acted like the master would have done. They imitated what the master would have done had he been there. They were essentially saying, see how much I learned from you. You try to make everything you touch grow. By allowing me to share in your enterprise, you have also made me grow. In the end, the servants' attitudes led to the actions that made all the difference. While one clearly didn't share the master's values, the other two took up his mission and were thus thoroughly prepared to share in his joy. The readings today do remind us that we're meant to live as children of the light, continuing God's own investment in us. Only by doing that can we prepare to share in the fullness of Christ's joy.